Hi, everybody. Jason here, as always. Welcome to the semi-weekly Tablas Creek Instagram Live broadcast. I have a really cool guest this week. It's Katie Wallace, who is the category manager in charge of the set for wine at Whole Foods nationally. I'm so looking forward to talking to her on the work that she's doing and also on her path into wine. But as I usually do, while we're waiting for people to sign on and join, I want to take a few minutes to show you a little bit about what's going on out at the winery. It is the transition from winter look to summer look. It happens fast. So there are sections of the vineyard. This is a Mourvedre block that doesn't look wildly different than it did just even like 2 months ago. I'll show you how far things are out in a second, but mostly I want you to look at the cover crop. So there's sections where the sheep have been in 3 times already, but it's all regrown. You got knee-high cover crop. Everything still looks dormant. Then you've got other sections where we've gone through and started to do the cleanup. This is a different Mourvedre block where you can see we've mowed. You can see we've gone through with our tournesol and gotten rid of the weeds underneath the vines. The whole vineyard's going to look more or less like this in another few weeks, except for the head-trained blocks, the head-trained dry farm blocks, where we actually spade or disc in the cover crop to reduce the competition for water. So that's kind of the 3 stages that the vineyard is at right now. A couple more pictures. Did want to show you where we are in terms of how far things have sprouted. So here is a head-trained Mourvedre block. You can see that things are just barely out in the late sprouting varieties. But compare that to this Grenache block. So Grenache vine is way out to the point that you can even see little flower clusters. One of those. So this is the time of year where you can really tell the difference between the different varieties. So everything it feels like springtime. We have been dodging frost in recent days. You can see one of our frost fans at the bottom of this hill. This is a Grenache Blanc block at the western edge of the property. Tops of the hills have generally been fine. Bottoms of the hills have not all been fine, unfortunately. Here is a bit of Grenache that you can see got zapped by frost last week. I'll give you a little close-up of another picture to show what happened. So in the aftermath of getting a frost, you can see there are secondary buds that push from lower down in the cordons. And you don't lose all of that production, but it does knock you back. I would guess that we probably have seen maybe 10% damage from the frost. And probably will lose, I don't know, half of the crop off of the vines that got touched. So, I mean, we're not talking about anything catastrophic here, but we're also not out of the woods. We have brought in a couple of additional frost protection mechanisms, big frost fan, mobile frost fan that we put in one of our frost-prone areas, which I think really saved us late last week. So anyway, that's a risk that we have in Paso Robles. It's one of the prices we pay to having such low humidity and having that great swing in temperature between the daytime high and the nighttime low, is that you can have it be in the upper 60s during the day in the spring and still have it freeze at night. We should be okay if we can get to the middle of May. So another couple weeks of white knuckles. Okay, that is it. Again, that's a quick run through of what's going on in the vineyard. I am excited to welcome Katie Wallace to join me. I'm going to invite her. There, I just sent them, and hopefully she will get that. And hey, how are you, Katie?
Hi, Jason. I'm good. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. Doing great. What are things like in Austin, Texas right now?
Everything's great in Austin, Texas, actually. It's great to see your pictures from Paso. Spring is definitely my favorite time of year here. So we've got the bluebonnets going, and this is like the time of year where Austin is perfect. Like, I don't like to travel during this time. The weather's beautiful. Yeah, it's great to be here, and we're back in the office a little bit these days. So really wonderful to see all the coworkers we haven't seen in a couple of years. So yeah, it's a good time to be in Texas for sure.
Awesome. Cool. So I usually like to start by asking people to kind of talk about their path into wine. Like, did you have wine on your table growing up? Did you think that this is where you were going to work?
I didn't. My path to wine is a bit of a long and winding one. I grew up in the northern central coast, so Santa Cruz County. So my earliest exposure was actually through apple farming. So our very dear friends farmed apples for Martinelli's. So I had some exposure to agriculture, just in that it was really a part of the way we grew up. And loved it. And when it came to go to college, I knew I wanted to go to Cal Poly, and I was super fortunate. There was actually a lot of scholarship programs for women to go into agriculture. So it wasn't something I would have ever pursued had it not been for the scholarship money. So because of that, I chose agricultural business as a major, which really caught my parents by surprise. They didn't know exactly quite why I had picked it, but the major started with an A, so it was one of the first ones to choose from, and was just super fortunate because of the support from the industry. I was able to go to Cal Poly, and was exposed to this side of it. So I initially started out in produce buying for Whole Foods. I started with Whole Foods Market as an intern while I was still at Cal Poly. So super fortunate. I had some family in Austin, so I became exposed to Whole Foods and their values. Was super interested in that. Super interested in becoming a Texan. So all the things kind of aligned. So I was able to become a produce buyer for Whole Foods immediately after graduating from Cal Poly. And then after 6 years as a produce buyer, which for people who aren't aware of how the produce industry works, I tell wine industry people it's like being in harvest all the time. It is completely crazy. The amount of work that goes into getting food on the plate is just amazing. Did a lot in organic agriculture as well. That's a core value for us there. So that was my earliest exposure to it. But knew I just wanted to change path a little bit, and I saw our boss, Kathy Strange, who, if y'all don't know Kathy, like, you definitely need to. She's absolutely amazing, one of the leading cheese experts in the world. She cracked a wheel of Parm with Massimo Bottura at our corporate office, and like, she's so charismatic, amazing, and I said to my friend who's a Whole Foods photographer, like, that is the team I need to be on. Like, who is Kathy Strange, and how can I get on her team? So I was super fortunate, met her and some of the other team members, and they happened to have a role open. So I was able to switch on to the wine team, and now have been on the wine team for 7 years. Our team has grown substantially during that time, and now I manage domestic wine for us, which is amazing. But no, my family did not drink growing up, but I can tell you that they drink now, and definitely are avid lovers of wine since I switched roles. So definitely wasn't something I was exposed to, but was just super fortunate with the way that my path evolved.
Do you have a wine that for you was like the first wine that you tried that kind of made you go, ah, so that's what it's all about?
Well, this probably isn't the most professional of answers, but my real exposure to wine was my senior year at Cal Poly once I was finally 21. We went on a large group tasting. So, and Ancient Peaks, right in Paso, actually,
Yeah.
Santa Margarita, was the first winery I went to. So, and actually, some people who I went to school with were friends of the family. So, that was my earliest exposure that I really remember, and kind of like seeing what was out there. I was super curious about wine because I had seen the growth. Like, we drove from Santa Cruz to Santa Barbara so much as
Right.
kids. So seeing like how much the vineyards had expanded, like, I was just so curious. Like, well, I'm very interested in this wine industry, but like, who's drinking all this wine? Because there was just such a rapid expansion and the growth of the vineyards. And obviously I don't have the same data points then that I do now. But yeah, I was super curious, but just didn't have like the context or really any experience, just to know about the industry.
You probably know more now about who actually is drinking that wine than like almost anybody else in the country.
We're trying. We're definitely trying to understand that consumer, and bring more consumers in as well. So absolutely, yeah. No shortage of data. Very exciting for sure.
Cool. Okay, so can you talk a little bit about sort of in the 6 years that you've been, or 7 years that you've been in the wine side at Whole Foods? Um, do you feel like the approach of Whole Foods towards wine has evolved?
Oh, that's a good question. I think so. Just in a couple of ways. one, we've reorganized our team. So we have additional resources now to really, like, I think our strategy and intent has always been the same, but now we're positioned in a better way to actually activate that. I would say in the last 2 years, a new focus has been regenerative agriculture. So I know this is a passion that you also share. You're really leading the way. Like the work you're doing in the industry is so exciting. But that's definitely a key focus for us. We're just really refocusing on our core values and really what quality means for our consumers. And we think that the way products are farmed and being able to specifically make those claims within store is the key thing that we're focusing on. So that's definitely something I'm super personally passionate about. We'll continue to double down on that. And then also e-commerce, of course, in the last couple of years, dramatically changed shopping patterns. For us, Amazon being a part of that is such a huge piece of the puzzle. It's actually incredibly helpful. The legal complexity of operating in 62 markets across the country, like truly, I don't think before it would have been so complicated for us to be relevant. It just takes so many resources, and still we're actively working to be able to deliver in more markets. It's so complicated, and the tech that's needed to do that to be legally compliant, it's incredibly complicated. So we spend a lot of our time too just making wine more accessible and more convenient for our customers. So I'm personally really excited about the e-commerce revolution and the approachability that it brings to the category, but definitely still a long way to go there. I feel like we're very much early in the way that that evolves.
So that's actually a really interesting comment. Like you talk about how you're working and how e-commerce helps make wine more accessible to new people. And you mentioned earlier that one of the things that you're always trying to do is to kind of bring new people into the world of wine. What have you found to be the most effective ways of doing that?
Oh, that's a good question. For us, I'm just trying to think about how to make it approachable. Like for me, I'm able to go, like, I get to meet you, I get to see your amazing vineyards, but like, not all of our customers
Right.
get to experience that. And it's such an intimidating category. Whenever we tell people like what we do, they are always like super interested, have a ton of questions, but I don't think people are actually really comfortable like shopping the category and experimenting and trying new brands. So for us, it's like, how do we connect our customers to a Vermentino, right? Like, I think in theory, if you and I could have a conversation with them, I feel confident we could hand sell them on it. But like, how do we truly make that something that people will experiment and try is a huge piece of what we spend our time doing. But I think pairings, right? Like really empowering them through culinary is something that's important to us. So just they're coming in for meat and seafood standards. We have amazing products in that space, amazing cheese products or specialty products. So really empowering people as the world reopens too, to be able to entertain, to feel confident in that, to have a story, to feel really confident, especially all the work y'all are doing in the regen space. Like I think our customers, especially our core customers, will really love that and love to be able to tell that story and feel confident placing those products on their table. So it's just our ability to make that connection and empower our customers to discover, which is something I'm really excited about and optimistic about as the world starts to reopen.
Oh, such a cool thing to hear. So I think all of us who are in the kind of organic, biodynamic, regenerative world of wine are kind of running up against the challenges that it's kind of the way that we are forced to label things, and the challenges of communicating that through all of the links of the chain from like producer to distributor to retailer to customer, means that it can be hard to give the full context. I mean, as you mentioned, like it'd be easy if you and I were standing there in front of a customer. It becomes a very different story than trying to communicate it on the shelf. So how have you sort of come down as the most effective way to talk about a wine or a vineyard or a winery's environmental practices, and communicate that to customers on the shelf?
That's a really good question. So we're really limited in the way that we're able to do it because of our organic standards. So we were the first national retailer to be certified as an organic grocer, which is something we're really proud of. So the integrity of all the claims that we make is important, right? Like we don't have the option to call out organic inspired farming. Like it's just not something we're able to do.
Right.
So I've spent a ton of my time. Luckily, we have a good organics team who are incredible resources because as I've moved forward in this journey, it's so complicated, especially for a lot of our small producers, and the challenges that come with shared production facilities and things like that. So we've been working on a couple of different things. Obviously, the Regen Organic Alliance certification is something
Right.
that we're really excited about. That's a claim that our team really puts a lot of value in. And obviously, the recent like TTB guidance to be able to put that on package is the first key step for us. So then from there, I can work with our legal marketing teams to be able to get those built in so we can call them out in store. So that's
Cool.
something that's currently in flight and we're excited about. The other space I've been focusing on is like the made with organically grown grape space. I think that there's a ton of opportunity here. Bonterra does incredibly well for us, but really beyond that, there aren't a ton of other brands that are certified that we can make the claims on in store.
Right.
So you'll see more to come. We have a big project launching in the fall with a pretty big brand that we're excited about. And I've been working on this for several years now. So we've actively been pushing people to certify and label because truly that's the only way we're able to make those claims. And we think it's something our customers would want if they knew and it was like simple enough for people
Right.
to see it like in a quick shop. So that's something we're working on. And then slightly separate is sustainability. Obviously, this is incredibly complex
Right.
for the wine category, just the sheer number of certifications and what they mean. Like it's confusing as a retailer.
Yeah.
So, I mean, for a consumer, I think it starts to lose equity. So we're working with the Sustainable Wine Roundtable, which is something we're really excited about, just kind of in its preliminary phases. We're a founding member of that. So I was really excited that we were able to join that and really excited for the work to come from that, to be able to benchmark those sustainability certifications so we can really understand with our experts which ones really mean something,
Yeah.
and provide value to our consumers is something we're going to continue to look into. And then I'm optimistic with the challenges we're seeing in the industry as well, with the glass shortages and everything else, that there'll be more of an openness to some of these like more sustainable options. And really the tide will be able to turn. I was really excited to see y'all's box project. I thought that that was so clever and really well done, and looking forward to seeing more products in that premium space too. And hopefully we can start to change customer awareness on packaging and kind of open their eyes to some potential products they might not have considered previously due to the environmental impacts of the way that they're packaged and grown.
I feel like, I mean, I know one of the main reasons why we thought that we were in a good position to maybe take a first whack at that consumer stigma on the wine in box is that we have a direct relationship with so many of our customers. We've got 40,000 people on our mailing list and 11,000 wine club members and 26,000 Instagram followers. And we can talk to people directly, but that power, like compared to the power that you have, the number of customers that Whole Foods has and speaks to on a weekly basis, like that is truly exciting. Like that's where you can really start to change what people's preconceptions are.
Absolutely. I feel a lot of responsibility with the platform that we have. I think it's incredibly important. So we try to be really thoughtful with the people that we partner with and the products that we bring to shelf, especially in those emerging categories where we have some space to play. So it's important, right? Like I think it's real. There's a ton of synergy between both. I think y'all being able to tell that story in your tasting room, your social channels, and e-commerce. Like I'm really looking for brands to do more in e-commerce to really tell their story online and different social channels, right? Like pushing
Yeah.
people to do things on TikTok. We see a ton of success with it in our feta category and other things. So I think it's really the creativity and kind of exploring all of those channels. I also think restaurants are such an important piece too. There's so much synergy between us and on-premise as well. So I think really all of us working together to raise things up is really how we're gonna turn things around.
Cool. So you mentioned already a piece of this in that obviously there's been a shift towards e-commerce, but are there other ways that like the last 2 years of kind of learning how to do things differently during COVID has kind of sort of changed the way you think about marketing wine?
Oh, marketing wine. I always have a lot of opinions on wine marketing. Yeah, it's interesting. I just think like I'm trying to think. I heard a really good talk actually from Shakira Jones from Psalm TV
Yeah.
on Clubhouse. I thought that her talk, she gave just some interesting points about the inclusivity of marketing as well. So we've really been trying to push people on their food pairings. Um, it was just a different perspective I hadn't thought of before and reached out to her. I just thought it was a really good point. So we've been pushing people just to be more creative with their pairings and the way they talk about the story and to really help create that customer connection. I mean, it's really going back to basics in a lot of ways, but just to be more inclusive and bring more people into the category and just to be a little bit more creative. So I know that's not a very like, exciting option, but then also just to really lean into social
Yep.
and things like TikTok. Like I'm just excited to see more in that space. Like in moving from California to Texas, I was really surprised about how little people knew about the way that food gets on their plate. So I
Huh.
think the way you start out these interviews and the way the exposure that you give to people in agriculture and all your farming practices, I think worker welfare, these are things that I think like the average consumer doesn't have exposure to. So I think the work you're doing is so important just to help inform people kind of about all the differences in farming
Yeah.
and what makes products unique. So I'm excited for that, but really I think it's still e-commerce for us. Like it's pretty complex for alcohol specifically. So really getting the right assets created, thinking about it in a different way. I think that there's a lot that can be done there. So I'm looking forward to seeing kind of what brands bring to the table.
Yeah, I think people don't realize just how complicated it is to sell wine over e-commerce. I mean, and wine honestly has it easier than most other alcohol categories because it's sort of the at least wineries have had some exceptions carved out for them that allow them to go kind of around the three-tier system. And there's a permitting system for at least in some states for retailers to sell by e-commerce interstate. But it's like it's always one of those things. I start explaining it to people and I see their eyes start to spiral like what you're talking about the commerce clause of the constitution and you're talking about like 50 different state regulatory systems. It's like I can only imagine how complicated it is for you to try to wrap your head around it as a retailer who is in a whole bunch of different markets and trying to come up with something that feels seamless to a customer because customers don't understand why it's so hard.
Absolutely. And just that they know it's even legal, right? Like our insights still show that they, in a lot of markets, they don't even know that they can buy wine online. So,
Huh.
and things that are complicated. The other thing in wine marketing I'm very intrigued by is NFTs. Like every time I see Dan Petrowski, I'm trying to pick his brain on how it works. I think you're seeing it with a couple of brands. So I'm very curious to see how wine evolves in that space as well and kind of what brands do. I think it's super intriguing. I love the creativity of it. So I'm excited to see what happens in that space next. I think it's pretty interesting.
Cool. Well, when you figure it out, let me know. I
Yeah,
find it utterly baffling as to how it works in wine. So I'm hoping the next
same.
year or two will make it a little clearer.
Absolutely.
Okay, so you get a chance to see lots of wines from lots of regions. Though are you just working domestically? Is those the wines that you primarily see?
Correct. I just do domestic wine. My peer Melanie manages imports, and then we have some coworkers that manage our private label and innovation projects. So.
Cool. So in terms of what you're seeing domestically, are there regions that you feel like people should start paying more attention to that are maybe flying under the radar up to this point?
Oh, that's a good question. Well, I mean, I think Paso is here to stay, right? I think the
Hope so.
value in Paso, the innovation there, I think the collaboration of the industry is wonderful. We see strong consumer trends for Paso, Oregon wine. I think they've had a couple of challenging harvests, right? But our demand there is still strong. I'm excited domestically with the creativity I'm seeing with a lot of these winemakers. Brienne from Day Wine created a wonderful rosé to help support her growers, right? When they were impacted by smoke, seeing kind of what people are doing with vermouths, what Sam from Po Wines is doing in her mom and pop project is super exciting. Martha Stewman is doing a spritz kind of with some of these wines.
Yeah.
So just seeing the creativity that these producers are taking when there's so much adversity within the industry, I think is really inspiring and just some really delicious products. So I'm excited to see kind of what continues to come in that space. I just think people are getting really creative to help support their growers and just to kind of push category limits. So really excited kind of within that space. So not a particular region. I think it kind of ebbs and flows depending on what happens with Mother Nature and climate
Right.
change. But I just appreciate the creativity and adaptation there. I think is really remarkable.
And how about, I'll ask the same question. How about in terms of like varieties or types of wine? Are there things that you, again, either you're seeing like this surge of interest in that wasn't there before, or areas maybe that deserve to get a surge of attention in terms of categories, blends, types, styles, anything like that?
That's a good question. Let me think. So rosé, I mean, the demand for rosé is still strong for us. It's starting to mature, but as a category, it's still really strong. Sauvignon Blanc, I think, will continue to be strong domestically. You're seeing a lighter harvest in New Zealand, so I think really on some of the
Huh.
domestic producers to help grab some of the share from New Zealand. We always have a healthy competition going on internally with Sauvignon Blanc because there's just so many delicious wines within that space. Um, we're trying. I love Chenin Blanc personally, so we did pretty well. We did a collaboration featured Wade Sellers Chenin last fall. Did quite well for being a other white varietal,
Right.
right? So yeah, those are kind of the two that come to mind initially. And then in the sparkling category, Paquette, more creative kind of sparkling wines. Hoping to see kind of more innovation within that space. We had some really good ones from Maryland, actually, from one of our local producers there. So continuing to kind of see those growing regionally. So we're keeping a close eye on those as well.
Cool. Okay. I cannot believe that it has been half an hour, but it has been almost half an hour already. So I just have one last question, which is like, if you like, is there something that you're working on that you're excited about that you can share with people, or something that you hope to see out of the wine category in coming years? And sort of asking you to look a little bit into your crystal ball and think about what you hope will happen, or what you hope to be able to help make happen in the next few years.
Good question. So I talked about it a little bit earlier, but definitely more wines that have claims that are certified that we can make in
Right.
store is something we'll continue to actively work on. You and I have talked about it quite a bit. So I'm very excited about that. I think it's a huge opportunity for the wine category. And I think we'll definitely see some great, like, I think this conversation in 5 years will be much different than it is today. We definitely under index compared to all the other categories in our store. So really excited about that. And I think our customers will be as well. So yeah, I think the made with organically grown grapes, I think you'll see more people coming in that space. We also want to have a more public stance on sustainability. So as the roundtable progresses in their work there, we're excited to have a more thoughtful platform surrounding that as well. So yeah, more to come there, but we're very excited about a couple of projects we have in the works and actively working on more and more people to certify or creating those opportunities. So excited about that for sure.
And I know, just from our own perspective, I mean, we have been organic for more than 20 years, and we've been biodynamic for the last, I mean, certified for the last 7 years. And this regenerative organic certification is the first one that we're putting on the label, because it feels so significant and meaningful and inclusive in all of the things that we're doing. So, and that's just starting with the 2021 vintage. So if we're at that kind of at that decision point, I got to believe that there's lots of other wineries who are looking similarly at, like, okay, now maybe is the time that that we should put this on the label and have it be a seal, have it be something that people can see and know, as opposed to having to go in and do the research and kind of figure it out for themselves.
Exactly. Yeah, it's very exciting. That additional transparency and with ingredients as well, right? We didn't even get into that, and
Right.
definitely don't have time to talk about it now. But absolutely, I think those things go hand in hand in the way that Everyone is paid. We're really excited about that certification specifically, and like just congratulate you on the work you've done so far. To get gold status is amazing. Our team was thrilled by that and the efforts of your team. So, I mean, that's amazing. Congrats on your recent award as well. Definitely well deserved, and really excited to see the way you're pushing the industry forward.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Cool.
Of course.
Okay. Thank you, everybody, for joining me. Again, I've been Jason Haas with Tablas Creek, and this has been Katie Wallace, category manager for domestic wine for Whole Foods. Katie, thank you so much for taking a little time out of your Wednesday to join me, and everybody who watched. Thank you for joining, and we'll see you in a couple of weeks.
Thanks, Jason. Great to see you.
Good to see you too.